What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Marvel Pair Up, your podcast where we always take the mini-series of whatever show Disney Plus is putting out in the MCU and pair it up with the historical or thematic importance of the genre that it's in, whether it's buddy cop comedies in Falcon and the Winter Soldier or time travel in Loki. We're going to try our best to find a movie and take you on a journey of how we arrived here and how the old is impacting the new. As always, I'm your host, Blake Schultz. That made it sound like it's a way deeper podcast than it is. As always, I'm your host, Blake Schultz, and with me is Jamie Druck.
Hello.
And Terrence and Jamie.
Hello, everyone.
And we are now on episode 5 of She-Hulk. We are getting, it feels like it's going to be a 24 episode show. And I don't mean that in a bad way. We're like, this one wrapped and a part of me was like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen now. This is great.
Yeah.
It's such a sitcom that I'm like, that it does feel like it really needs to be 22. I wish it was because it's just deeply of that type.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm curious, but like, I don't need there to be a giant villain, but I was like, oh, we still don't have like a giant overarching like thing. I love this. I feel so at sea in a good way. And we're going to be pairing it up with Ally McBeal, a show that quietly changed television, dare I say. I think a lot of people will get into it, but I feel like it's one of those shows that when a lot of lists come up, I'm like, well, Ally McBeal they were doing it before The Office was doing it. It's fine. Millennials. But what'd you guys think of the episode?
It was a fun one. Just good time all around. Poor Jen to just parade her failed dates around, but I respect her for it, because like I literally said to Tony, I was like, this, I know what's coming, and he's like, what do you mean? I'm like she's gonna take off, like that's the only way she's gonna be able to win this case is by getting those dates, and that sucks.
That you refer to her as She-Hulk, yeah. I love this episode because I'm a huge Renee, who played Mallory. I like Mallory coming in and being more prominent is great. And I love that Jen like actively looks up to Mallory and is like, oh my God, you're great. You want to talk to me? Cool. This is fantastic. And I love that as standoffish and like I'm in control of my womanhood and everything that Mallory is, she does still recognize that, hey Jen, you are insane for parading your men, the men you've been around here, and you're worth more than what they're saying. Like if this person's saying that, hey, you aren't good enough because you're not the She-Hulk, screw him. That's not that point. But we're not friends. So don't think this drink that we're having makes us BFFs, because we're not.
It's so funny.
I thought that was fantastic. I also love that Titania is now sort of a reoccurring thing, because she has been gone for so many episodes. I was like, I want her back, because that's I mean, in comics that's her main villain, but like on marketing stuff, she's been doing. Titania's been
everywhere.
Yeah. So
that could not be a more perfect role for her.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's the other. I was like, you don't cast her and then have her in like the opening of the show and then leave. Like, there's no way. But I agree. I'm glad everybody's back. I love all the like weird knockoff products she has. Like it was another great example of like, this is where we are now in the MCU. There are going to be people like Vought who are going to start creating these like, oh, I own the Iron Man brand. Not Stark never registered it. I'm going to go get rich now. You have these, and they're very real cases. Like this all came from a real thing in the comics where She-Hulk originally couldn't be called She-Hulk, and Marvel had to be like, no, that's whoever you are, absolutely not. Which is a fun, like really stupid historical Easter egg that I'm like, oh, fun, which I didn't know before this. I'm not some comic genius. I saw an article. I liked, we got all the guys up there. It felt like an inverted episode of that Parks and Rec episode where Leslie has to go on trial for misusing the company time. And when she has Ben up, she's like, and Ben, would you say that you're enjoying your relationship with Leslie? No. But at the end, they're like, that must have been painful. Was it? Having the guy that I like tell me my party and date went really well under oath? That's pretty good. And I was like, yeah, in a very weird way, like, there has to be some sort of healing to this of like, well, they have to tell me. I'm not going to be sitting here wondering. At least I can just write these assholes off. They're under oath. But
also, though, I'm like, spoiler alert for the next episode. I want to see her whole new wardrobe. like you're gonna get a glimpse in the next one, but like I want just give me a whole montage of clothes.
Oh, there.
Like a lot of people were like the Daredevil helmet. I'm like, I don't care about that costume. I want to see her in the clothes.
Yeah, I want to see her and her costume and then whatever she's
actually all her whole wardrobe.
Yeah, I want like an 80s montage. Yes. How is this not a sitcom episode of like how are we not just going in and out and morphing and things work and don't work? But no, I as much as I want Daredevil, I'm not mad at the show, but I am starting to be like, okay, Disney Plus, stop showing me clips with Matt until he's there. I'm watching the show. I'm in. I'm giving you money every month.
It doesn't bother me enough. Probably because every time they bring a new character, like Luke Jacobson, I could just watch him
steals it
all the time. I'm like, I want to see what he does. Like, what other random people do you make clothes for? I want to see it.
I just want to manage my expectations.
I get it. What I do say that this one was interesting is this is the first time that we don't have a post credit, and I sat there. Like,
I
thought that was like a guarantee for each episode.
Yeah,
I know.
And I was like, I don't understand.
Well, I really thought. Sorry, Jamie, go.
No, to say there's not one next week either.
Correct.
And I think that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because my big pie in the sky was never gonna happen thing when they were like, oh, we know somebody who makes superhero costumes. One, I've always been like, who's the tailor who knows all the secret identities? Then the Incredibles nailed it, and I loved it so much. But a small part of me was like, there's no way we're bringing back the guy who made Daredevil's costume, right?
Right.
Like, there's no way. And a part of me was like, is the post-credit scene gonna, like, we've teased that helmet. Are we gonna find out that, like, this guy that she's talking to behind another curtain is Daredevil? Like, are we about to, how deep are we gonna get here?
Yeah.
And now I'm on some like WandaVision kick where I've never cared about the cameo or the rumors. And I'm like, I want it so bad. But I love the show so much that I don't care. He could not be in it. And I would be like, I'm bummed, but it's a delight. Mm-hmm. It's like when you order an ice cream and they bring you a brownie and you're like, well, I wanted ice cream, but the brownie, don't take it away.
No, yeah. Great.
Well, now don't, hold on. It continues. I loved the wardrobe. I loved the, like, she's an Avenger. Not really, though.
Yeah. You know my cousin.
And now I'm like, how many, like, we're back to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff almost. Where I'm like, well, how many superhero people are running around that this guy has a business?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, how many and who's mad? Like, I have so many, like, world questions now.
He's got a business on the top floor of a penthouse floor of a complex. So like
so business is good.
Right.
I would have loved it if this is how we subtly introduced the X-Men. If there was just like a blue suit and then a yellow suit, and I would have been like, oh my god. We can keep this. This is another character like Madison and everyone else they introduced. I'm like, just keep bringing him back. Yeah. Post-credit, you now have, when the post-credit scene isn't doing a big setup and it's a joke, this is the guy I want to see when we do the joke. It's fantastic. I feel like every week it gets more and more in its footing, which is also why give me the 22 episodes. Like any great sitcom, you're always like, what's your favorite season? And someone's like, well, not the first one. They were figuring it out.
Right.
And I'm now like, yes. Yeah. I loved every episode so far, but this is it. These last three, I'm like, you got it, guys. This is incredible. Let's just stay here and don't stop for 18 more weeks. I'm with Jamie though. Show me the costume. Show me everything. I understand teases and getting me around, but you don't have to get me to log on to network television next week. I'm subscribed.
Like, I mean,
I give you money. I've bought the show. We're not being like, oh, we lose viewers in week 5, so give them something big. You know, there's a golf tournament on NBC. But speaking of old network television, Ally McBeal. The show that I think we all immediately dove into being like, well, we have to do it. One of the really almost first big like cringe comedy, which I know is now like a TikTok Gen Z is like, it's cringe. Like there was a time where it was new though. You must understand. For I know that now it is too much. I'm with you. It's every show now. the Ally McBeal and The Office and Parks and Rec nailed it, and now we can be done.
I think it's interesting comparing Ally McBeal to those two shows because I don't think because those are mockumentaries and they're half hours, whereas Ally McBeal's a dramedy. A cringe is the right word, I'll tell you that.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. Is this was sort of the beginning of that kind of style. You know what I mean?
It's different genre, but like,
yeah.
But it's also like I'm trying to think of an example, just in terms of like the way that you sometimes go inside her mind, and she's like getting physically dumped out of a dump truck, and she sees her ex, and she's imagining them having sex in a coffee cup, like
Scrubs would be kind of
Scrubs very much where
Scrubs would be the one-to-one for that.
Correct. Scrubs and this are one-to-one.
I will say I've sorry, continue talking about it before I dive into my opinions.
Because I was like, well, and it is interesting when you see that though, because like that's almost what I mean. Like this show influenced so many things in so many strange ways. And I think a lot of this was concurrent, but it's like this kind of slipped in first.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. We didn't really get a lot of shows like this. And I don't think we've gotten a lot after, like maybe Boston Legal. Like we've had other law shows, but to Jamie's point, we're having cutaways, and even like the ending and some of the thematic choices, like so much of this show, when it dealt with relationships, unlike everything else that was like, I'm going to go find the person I'm going to be with, happy ending. The ending is like, here's all the happy couples. She's chosen to not do to be lonely rather than be with someone she doesn't want to be with. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's a very unique theme that we don't ever in most movies really see dealt with.
Yeah, this predated Scrubs by about 4 years, so it kind of did get the jump and kind of created that lane. And it's weird because David E. Kelley is sort of like to law what Dick Wolf is to police procedurals. Like he had 3 law shows on at the same time. Like the Ally McBeal, The Practice, and Boston Legal were all on literally, like they were staggered a little bit, but they all were on. There was a year or two that they were on at the same time. But this one was the one that was kind of like, one, it's a female lead, and 2, it was a little bit more out there. It got a little bit more surreal. Goofy. That's the word I'm looking for. Surreal and goofy compared. Boston Legal got goofy too, but this one didn't have, because they used the fourth wall break as her overlays with her voiceover. That was her breaking the fourth wall, kind of like what Jen does, where she just breaks the fourth wall. Ally was doing it as us as the audience, but in her head. So we would just have voiceovers to tell us what was going on. But there were moments where she's like, hey, I feel so small in this office, and she's in like this big chair as a super small person. That's the kind of goofy stuff that we would sort of get in. But it all had heart to it. Like there was a message or meaning behind it all. And it's the first time that I think they had a female character in a while that was sort of, even though it got some flack for it, but that was sort of waving that feminist flag at the time when no real other shows had a lead that was actually sort of doing that.
Was it? This was before Sex and the City? I think it was around the same time.
It was at the same time, yeah.
Yeah.
But Sex and the City wasn't. Sex and the City was funny, but it wasn't like. But it didn't have those kind of goofy, fantastical elements to it. But they were similar in tone, in terms of dramedy tone. Yeah. And I will say, I watched the first 4 episodes. I've never seen a full episode. I'm very familiar with the show because I was growing up when it was on, and I've seen clips. But this was the first time I've watched full episodes, and I was really into it. But by the time I finished that 4th episode, I was like, I'm done. I love the comedy. Jane is so funny. All the, like, I love the silliness and the jokes, but the drama is too melodramatic for me. It's like the 4th episode is all about her, like a professor she had an affair with dies, and she has to speak at the funeral, and it was just like these flashbacks were just, I like melodrama, but a lot, but if I have melodrama, I also need like something supernatural mixed in, with my melodrama. And so by the time, like, I was like, maybe I'm going to watch Ally McBeal now, but I was over it. And the thing that sucks is the cast. I know that so many juicy people show up. Like we talked about this off camera, that Robert Downey Jr. is in 26 episodes. He has a big arc.
The 5th season of this is loaded. It's like
like Lucy
Regina
Liu shows
Hall,
up.
Lucy Liu, Hayden Panettiere, James Marsden is on the 5th season. But
even like individually, like in the episodes I watched, like Kate Jackson was just in one off, and like as a big Charlie's Angels fan, I was like, heck yeah, look, it's Kate Jackson. So I imagine there is a lot of that too, like just like one-time guest stars that I would love to see over the years.
It's funny because this show comes in the tail end of the 90s, so it is very much a product of that with some of the melodramatic stuff. It's weird watching it. Some of it has not aged as well. Like the whole pilot is like flashbacks of them when they were dating when they were younger, and it's like, oh, this is very 90s. Like this is very much like, look at us walking through the rain and going to college and all that stuff, and you're like, this is not aged as well. But I at the end of the day, I do still like that the heartbeat. I love drama, so especially law drama. I'm always in for it. So the melodrama stuff doesn't bother me as much because I get where the pieces are. It's kind of like with Grey's Anatomy, which I love too, which is a dramatic show. But like any case of the week or whatever is always attached to something that's happening in their real life. So I'm a sucker for that. So that's what this sort of show does. But I think it did it in a way that if you poke fun of your main character and you're kind of like taking the piss out of it while you're doing it, and again being being offensive to yourself, like you're basically self-deprecating the entire time. I kind of enjoy those type of characters, and that's pretty much who Ally McBeal.
That's why Terrence and I are friends. Yeah, I mean, the show's, I can't say enough good things about it, but I think you've all articulated everything that made it great so well. And I just think it's so fascinating when we do these retrospectives now and we get into all these shows and these big things. I'm like, well, this was sort of doing what like everybody's doing now. Like this was emotional and we had cutaways and we were doing like in bigger things and character driven, and every sitcom now is like, we're almost coming out of it a little bit. Like, I feel like now we're a little like, we don't really want to do the cringy humor anymore. Like it's getting a little like, it can get very grating, but I mean, Abbott Elementary is kind of similar right now and it's killing it. And it's just great, but it also, I mean, it so perfectly pairs up with this show. And it's interesting seeing that evolution now come into a superhero idea.
It's interesting because I mean, the timing of this was Ally McBeal. There was a moment she was on the cover of Time, like Callista was on the cover of Time in real life as Ally McBeal, but like her character was on the cover of Time, which is fascinating. The one thing that I will say that it's weird about this show, and I've never seen another show do this before. There was a run in 1999 where they did like 13 episodes where they truncated the show. So the normal show is 45 minutes long, but then they did in the 90s called Ally, got rid of the McBeal part. And
I saw this on IMDb and I was confused.
They recut it into a 28 to 30 minute episode and took out all the law stuff and just had it be a straight sitcom, like a normal sitcom with just the life stuff. And I was like, well, that's a weird thing. And they did that parallel. It came out the same, like they would drop the first episode on like their drama episode on Monday, and then later in the week they would drop the 30-minute episode. It only lasts.
How have I never heard about this?
It's the only time I've ever seen this happen. They recut the show, add a couple other elements to make it more of a comedy, but basically it stopped being a dramedy. It was like, we're going straight for the comedy aspect of this.
They only did that for a season?
They only did it it only wound up being for 10 episodes. They did it for they filmed or recut 13 episodes, but it only 10 only.
Yeah, there's no way that had high ratings if you had already seen it. That's very like, that reminds me of when Netflix was like, we recut season 4 of Arrested Development, so it's more like what you remember. And everyone was like, it's not though. Now you just have Ron Howard narrating for 20 straight minutes over a montage of actors we recognize.
Yeah. Yeah,
I liked season 4 of Resident
Evil. I do too. I just thought it was funny when they recut it because there's literal episodes where I'm like, there's 3 dialogue moments. The rest of this is Ron Howard being like, okay, so here's what's going on with these guys. Now we got to go over here. So, okay, now, and I was like, cut this man another check. But I've enjoyed it. I'm not saying anything bad about the show. It's just, I'm like, oh, that's the only other time I can think of where a television show, I mean, because movies do it more often than like my computer updates.
Yeah.
But like TV shows are usually pretty, unless you're removing something problematic,
right,
are usually pretty like, this is it. Like, it's not like we've ever, I don't know, recut King of the Hill. And we're like, it's just in the propane store now.
That's all. We're only showing you these scenes and putting them together and making it an episode.
Yeah, like, could you imagine if Scrubs was like, what if it was just a drama? Watch that next week tomorrow.
Yeah, Yeah.
That's what's even crazier. If they did that on like the Blu-ray or like it's a fun special thing, I'd be like, fine. But to on like whatever day of the week it was, a Monday, be like, watch Ally McBeal. And on Wednesday, just watch Ally. If you missed it.
Clearly an experiment that they were trying to see. Maybe this is what the show should be. More people will like it.
Ally McBeal in the like late 99 year was like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
It was at an all-time high. So they're like, look, this thing is working. Like they were selling Ally McBeal dolls. Like she was literally everywhere. So they were like, hey, we can do no wrong. Turns out they could.
You know what kids love? Cliff Notes. It's just, yeah, that's a wild idea. But no, the show's great. It just so is She-Hulk. Like we're seeing it in this episode, especially where we're parading exes around and we're getting into this idea of knowing your worth and not just knowing it, but owning your worth. And like, you don't need to go date these hot men just because they're willing to do it. We are getting into it's almost a very Scrubs idea too of like, this makes us friends. It doesn't make us friends. Like that's a very Dr. Cox JD. Yeah, exactly. There's so much baked into this. We're getting some of the drama. We have these fourth wall breaks. I'm kind of like, oh, I would love some cutaways though. Let's see them get really big.
You're getting pieces of like what happens in Ally with like the thought process, but like I'm like, yeah, they don't go all the way in where she's like, I'm gonna imagine some weird stuff where like if I turn She-Hulk and I bash your head in, but then I don't actually do it. That's kind of what the cutaway would be if they did it in She-Hulk.
It kind of does it in a very like organic way where like her suit doesn't fit her a lot. And like, there's very small, like little things. I'm like, oh, that could have been like
it feels like Scrubs season 1, and then you and I are on Scrubs season 3 where they're like, we're just going to go balls out.
Go nuts. Go crazy.
Yeah.
Get that budget doubled and go nuts. Like prove that it's a success. It's like season, I think 4 of Seinfeld, where they're like, yeah, they didn't really give us much more money, but they gave us like a city block on the back lot that was just ours. And we were like, sure, let's go crazy and do episodes about parking lots and skipping in the rain. And I was like, yes, give them whatever last tool they need to just go full wacky and then bring it back to the calm stuff that made it a success in the first place.
Indeed.
Jamie, you looked like you had something.
No, my AirPods are dying, and I was making sure I could. No, sorry.
I was like,
that's why I look so thoughtful.
A fascinating point. I think that's it, guys. I think this one is very straightforward. We don't have to do too much digging here. Everyone knows Ally McBeal's influence on everything that's ever happened after it.
I'm glad we did this because I really did. Like, I only expected to watch the pilot, and then I was like, a day later, I was 4 episodes in. So, and even though I don't think I'll continue, I am. When the reboot happens, I'm gonna be.
So you're gonna end up going back.
But how? But how far are you in Night Court?
No, I have not watched more Night Court. I'm more interested. I literally said to Tony, I was like, I could watch more Ally McBeal, but I'd rather watch more Night Court.
I feel like though, when you get to season 4 of Ally McBeal and Robert Downey Jr. is all being Robert Downey Jr., you're gonna be like, oh crap. Here I am.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps up the show. You can, of course, leave us a review on whatever podcast app you're using. You can follow the show at Hollywood ADI, which is our parent show. Hollywood Already Did It, about movie reboots, remakes, and sequels. Terrence runs the Hollywood Already Did It YouTube channel with trailer reactions and show-by-show reviews of all the things he's watching. Jamie is at Jamie Cinematics on Twitter, and you can see all of her comicbook.com, Phase Zero work there, and everything else that everybody does. All on Jamie's Twitter. That's how that comma made that sentence seem. She retweets all of us.
Oh, yeah.
She does better at posting the show on Instagram than I do.
I do plug the show better on Instagram. That's Jamie Jirag. If you want some good plugs for this specific show, follow me on Instagram.
All right. We will see everybody next week, I think. I don't know how time will work. Later.
Later.
Bye.